Hello, ladies and gentlemen, that's Guy here, bringing to you another video for Conqueror's Blade, published by Polaris Interactive, and this is a PTR update for upcoming changes. Going to hit the PTR. We have a few adjustments along with a single unit mastery. Now, I before we get into the actual changes, I'm going to leave, even though they'll leave that screen up, I want to kind of address a announcement that was posted on the Discord. Can't seem to find it anywhere else. And uh, Paladin X posted a sincere letter on balance adjustments in the PTR test. So it says, Dear Warlords, we understand that many of you have noticed issues in the current matchmaking battles. Even with countless troops ready for battle, it often feels like there are no effective units to deploy. Leaving only a few viable tactics, the only exhilarating battlefield experience seems to be gradually turning dull. We sincerely reached out to some veteran players and carefully studied the current battlefield data. We've come to realize that simply nerfing a few overpowered units won't solve the issue on the battlefield. Some of our previous attempts on the PTR were not fully thought through. For this, we deeply apologize. This has only strengthened our resolve to improve your battlefield experience and make combat strategies more diverse. Therefore, we will begin gradually enriching the unit counter system on the battlefield, bringing back some units that lost their place due to an overly intense meta. These units were once a crucial part of the balance of unit types. They're they're not ah man. They not only played key roles in holding the line, pushing forward and delivering burst damage, but more importantly, they were at the heart of countless warlords' glorious memories. In recent seasons update, we leaned towards defensive adjustments with large and small shields, and the blocking mechanics of shields have made it difficult for ranged units to contribute meaningful damage. With this update, we aim to reinforce the fundamental counter dynamic of medieval warfare. Ranged units, shieldless infantry, shielded infantry, pole arm infantry, cavalry, charging cavalry, and other unit types with each have a more defined role and appropriate scenario. For the future direction, we have the following consideration. Due to the balance issue for a long time, most 3-star and lower units have struggled to prove their tactical value on battlefields dominated by 5-star units. In terms of leadership cost effectiveness, they have been far inferior to 4-star and 5-star units, which has left the 3-star units in your roster underutilized. In the next few updates, we will be emphasizing the experience and value of 3-star units in high-tier battles, ensuring their combat strength better matches their leadership costs and opening up more tactical space for you. We deeply value the feedback from our warlords during PTR testing. All adjustments will be tested on the PTR first to keep negative experiences out of the live game and prevent issues before they arise. The Conqueror's Blade battlefield environment is something that we and all of your warlords must build together. For this PTR, we have also opened a dedicated feedback channel for your reports and suggestions. High quality feedback and recommendations will be adopted, and whether many future balance adjustment plans take effect will heavily depend on the opinions and feedback you provide after hands-on testing in the PTR. They give a link. In short, the Conqueror's Blade development team will do our utmost to make the game better, striving to bring you an even better experience. We warmly welcome you to continue providing your invaluable feedback. Sincerely, Conqueror's Blade development team. For the specific adjustments, please see the PTR white paper. So, over the next coming weeks, there's going to be a few PTR changes, and this is one of many. I want to simply express a very simple notion. I don't understand why the developers who has pushed for counter mechanics have doubled down on counter mechanics. You might disagree with me on this, but for me, the counter system on the battlefield absolutely pointless because it just is not feasible to create a counter system through a logical progression of this beats that. It is simply not it is simply not true for Y X unit to beat Y unit just because. You and that is the same thing to say I should not simply beat your unit simply because I use a different unit. On the premise that they are of the same power level. And that is one thing that I want to stress so much is that you can have dynamic pros and cons for units, but on a general basis, you cannot balance a game like Conqueror's Blade with units only being effective, and I say effective in quotation marks because the range of effectiveness varies on a rudimentary scale. Because to me, you can have advantages, disadvantages, units with advantages and units with disadvantages. If I was to say very simply, like, oh, Iron Reapers against Shield unit, I want a very simple advantage for Iron Reapers. It's going to be that they're just more cost effective against this unit, not that this unit just gets completely bowled out of the stratosphere because they're up against Iron Reapers. Now, I'll continue on after going through the PTR. I'm not sure how I wanted this to go, but I'm going to split it up for now. So there's a lot of things to go through, a lot of minor things to go through. But anyway, onto the Daggerak Lancer's Mastery. Base modifications. Very interesting that they get a. Not only do they get a natural buff, they also get masteries on top. So, base health is plus 500, so 6,724 goes to 7,224. They have something like 10. I think it's like 10, 500. So they're probably going to be 1,100 now. Sorry, 11,000. They're probably going to have 11,000 at max level. So don't quote me on that, but it feels around that level. Piercing armor penetration going to plus 100, so it's going goes from 1378 to 1478. Piercing damage plus 50, 871 to 921. Optimize the display during Rally to Me. The hero's buff bar now shows the remaining time of Rally to Me. Honestly, this should have been on the ability itself. They've got plenty of ways to show the duration decreasing or having a yellow number being present on top of things. Like they had like yellow outlines slowly decaying, those kinds of things. I don't think having it on the buff bar really matters, but to each their own. I would have preferred a more consistent approach to how they display these things. Optimize the description of the Daggerak Lancer's active skill, Rally to Me, adding the missing effect. Counterattacks are triggered when attacked during the skill. Again, this is also incorrect itself. They do not activate counterattack until after they actually get CC'd. The initial rally to me is actually weaker than the counterattack, unless you're going full speed. But that is also to say that Daggerak Lancer's counterattack is restricted on attack interval. So they're not entirely charging when they're in their counterattack state. And what I mean by that is they will sometimes be off interval where they will, because charging normally is a constant collision and they don't hit people constantly in their counterattack state, and they'll do a swing most normally. And this swing is huge, by the way. Um, it is it is basically pike range around the horse. So I've been swiped by this, and they've been like a pole arm's length away from me, and they've killed me. Normally with cavalry, unless they basically collide straight onto you, you don't normally take damage. But dagger lancers in their counterattack state will hit you, and um, it will feel unfair. I mean, anyone that's experienced counteract lancers has experienced this, but continuing on. Mastery node has another additional plus 390, very minor, 3% increase, slashing armor penetration 100, slashing defense plus 50, slashing damage plus 100. Again, the slashing damage part is probably going to have a much larger effect than the piercing one, but again, penetration is also um, going to shoot up the damage way up there. Not to say that they already do ridiculous amounts of damage, but I'm not sure if that's base bonus damage or off scaling. So it's uncertain at the present time of the actual difference between the two units, so we'll have to see. Node 5, like a pine, when counterattacking during rally to me, gain endure and 90% damage reduction for 0.5 seconds. I don't know what endure is, but 90% damage reduction for 0.5 seconds seems ridiculous. Again, I don't like these kinds of mechanics because it just creates scenarios where it's basically a win state. You basically a win state, and automatically going into the counterattack during rally to me will make them basically invulnerable. But there's also another thing. I'll explain it a little bit. 1,000 March damage to melee infantry plus 300. Bank of the Han River damage to shield units plus 300. Ming Banner Flutter after dealing damage to 5-star units gain plus 50% movement speed and plus 30% damage against units like units for 2 seconds. All right. I want to address a very old issue I have, and a very simple gripe I have with the Daggerack Lancers. The cavalry damage reduction doctrine has a very stupid exploit. Okay, not exploit. It has a very stupid bug where it will trigger a second time. Okay, I don't know why. I don't know why this happens, but the actual animation is classified as charge, but it is also classified as it's also sorry. Not only is it classified as a charge, so even in their normal state, it will when it triggers this animation. Not only will it have the charge damage reduction, for some reason the charge damage reduction is being applied either incorrectly or at twice the normal value. That is to say that they reach maximum damage reduction during the attack itself. So, seeing Node 5, when counterattacking during rally to me, gain endure and 90% damage reduction for 0.5 seconds. The 90% damage reduction just tells me that they do not understand or did not read my report about the issue of the cavalry damage reduction. it is insulting to me in particular because this is an issue that I expressly reported and wanted it to be fixed. Nothing. But I hate Daggerak Lancers because it is simply a really shitty unit to fight against because of this issue. It is very tanky for that brief moment. There are times where you can burst it down before it enters its counterattack state because it's really funny because you stop it and then it enters its counterattack state. So the literal moment of stopping it, they're not fully damage. They're not like 90% damage reduction. They're probably normal 50%. But the split second afterwards, they're 90%. And when they swing pretty hard. Now, there's a lot of things in game that probably negates the damage reduction, but a lot of traditional things don't. It is it is of my opinion that this mastery is tone deaf, and they want to bring back the Daggerak Lancers just because. And it's silly to me that they want to cause a repeat of an issue that hasn't been fixed. Now, maybe you guys like Daggerrack Lancers. It's weak in the current meta. It doesn't deal very much damage. I mean 3,000 damage to like however many targets. Apparently someone measured it at like 7 or something. I'm not entirely sure. I just felt like this unit in particular is just every cavalry to me just feels overtuned. And again, like Daggerrack Lancers are not particularly strong for a cavalry. It's still a charge type cavalry. There's still plenty of pike units that have doctrines that can counter it. But when I when I look at this unit, I don't like the design of it. I don't like all of the bugs I know about it. I don't like how a lot of things work because it just is really silly to me. The the slashing attack being defaulted to one of its actual basic attacks, actually having the protection just seems really stupid. And depending on how they implement Like a Pine, this will also cause issue with just them Xing around. Not that they haven't already caused issues with buffing every single Lance Cavalry to the point where walking them through infantry now will actually kill half your guys. I mean, if you face off against the humans currently, even if their charge fails, you can walk them straight into an infantry and it will kill them. No joke. I know I'm probably ranting a lot, but it is going to be kind of a ranty kind of thing. Range units. Now we're getting on to some range units. They're addressing Rattan Marksman with a base piercing armor penetration increase from 1148 to 1227. Uh, it's a weird 79%. I mean, not percent. It's a weird 79 increase. So I'm just very weirded out by that. And there's base piercing damage going from 1105 to 1216, and the attack interval reduced by 10%. Now, don't be fooled about attack interval reduced. It's not exactly clear what exactly happens. I'll have to remeasure the fire rate. I'll have to remeasure the fire rate based on ammo consumption. But if I take the words at face value, this is around about 11% increase. It's 11.1 reoccurring percent increase in fire rate. Um, so that's happening. Kriegsrat Fusiliers. Base piercing armor penetration goes from 2614 to 2764. base piercing damage is 26 2,698 to 2,798. So it's 100. So it's 100 increase for that one, and it's like 150 for the penetration. Attack interval reduced by 20%. Ammo, base ammo increased by 150, so they have 600 ammo now. That's amazing because they needed a base ammo increase for a long time. But I don't know why they're buffing Kriegsrat Fusiliers. Kriegsrat Fusiliers is actually really strong, given the near infinite ammo they can achieve against anything that doesn't have a shield. And that's really stupid that they would increase the damage of ranged units, particularly the tier 4s. I don't know why they think the Kriegsrat Fusiliers are underperforming, but it may have to do with the fact that Kriegsrat Fusiliers are actually one of the few units that don't have a block. Well, I mean, Vassal Longbowmen don't have block break, but Imperial Archers and Imperial Archers, Imperial Arquebusiers both have a block break component. So those two units definitely are not as bad against shields as Vassal Longbowmen and Kriegrak Fusiliers. You do know that the Swine Feathers have block break components. The Ariashigaru Musketeers are terrible, and I feel like there is not another tier 4, but I feel like I might be forgetting something. But um, the ammo increase is probably the biggest change and will probably prevent issues of them needing to go back all the time. Tertiary Arquebusier's base piercing damage going from 2,488 to 2,748. So that's a massive increase from that's a massive increase. So that's 260, almost more than a 10% increase in more than a 10% increase in base damage here. Attack interval reduced by 20%, restores 3% max health for each enemy killed. And I want to just make this very clear. Healing any kind of sustain, I hate. Absolutely hate. It is the worst. It is the worst kind of mechanic you can have in a battlefield scenario, because healing, especially for high damage units, will always present an issue where they are capable of killing faster than you can deal damage to them. In this case, only 3% of max health for each enemy killed. Not particularly high. It's not ridiculous, not like every attack they're going to be killing someone. It's a bit measured. It's still really terrible because it just means that against tertiary arquebusiers, there is no attrition gameplay. Conqueror's Blade needs attrition in its gameplay, or it lit or the I don't know how to explain it, or the game logistics doesn't work. This is why Men-at-Arms and Paladins right now are super popular, because not only are they strong, they also have high sustain. Paladins, not so much. The sustain is kind of meh. But Men-at-Arms in particular, they're highly desirable because of the absolute nutty sustain of them being able to fight, catch the enemy off foot, and just keep pulverizing the enemy constantly. The only problem is that Men-at-Arms are not distinctly stronger than either Wu Wei or Paladins. They're nichely effective because of their sustain. Wu Wei's burst damage is really high, and 10% healing. Well, 5% healing with every attack, plus 10% for every activation. It's really, 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 really dumb. So I'm not sure why they added it here. I'm really going to try to push back on that one, but if you guys think that's okay, fine. I mean, you can disagree with me, and again, I don't like seeing sustain in a game that relies on logistics and, well, sustain in this context is really good to bring up Kriegsatz Fusilier because it has really low ammo. Kriegsatz Fusiliers were designed initially with low low ammo, high fire rate. Reason being is that because they were supposed to shoot, 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 and go into melee, unfortunately, no one ever used them in melee because there was just no reason to. And it just kind of kept going from there. Um, Another point to bring up, attack interval reduced by 20%. This could be a 25% fire rate increase. Again, I will have to measure this, but keep understand that these increases to range damage is kind of ridiculous, especially for the Kriegsrath Fusiliers case. The tertiary one, not so much, but it could go out of control. When I'm not really sure whether or not the game could sustain a tier 5 range unit is particularly generic, being balanced properly, where it's actually fun to fight against. And I'll just say straight out, it's not fun to fight against ranged units, but I understand that this is how they designed the unit. I just want them to change it. But increasing the fire rate, increasing the damage, this is not going to end well, I think, if it goes through as is, just from the looks of it. So we have balance overview, polearm infantry, Imperial pike guards, disperse formation replaced with column formation, base piercing armor penetration 1455 to 1505, only a plus 50. Then we have base piercing damage 1110 to 1360. It's a good increase, 250. I think they should have increased the armor penetration way more. They should have increased the piercing damage way more. It's Imperial Pike Guards are not particularly damage heavy. Their advance is CC heavy, but it has very little damage. And I mean little damage in comparison, though there is the infinite thing, but it has a very small hitbox kind of deal. I don't think it's a problem to almost double the damage out of their Imperial Pike Advance right now, and they still wouldn't be OP. I'm I'm almost positive you could double the damage and they would be fine out of their Imperial Advance. Pretty sure. Pretty sure. Halberdier Sergeants. Schildtron replaced with column formation. During column formation, the active skill becomes Brace. Okay. I believe it means that the column formation activates Brace when they form up. So, yeah, I think that's what they mean. Probably the same with the column formation, but I think what they're expressing here is that column formation itself is normal brace, not phalanx type brace. So they don't make the distinction between here. So that's also an interesting thing. Base piercing armor penetration goes from 1688 to 1888. Base piercing damage goes from 1327 to 1407. Only an 80 increase. So we're looking at what? Probably almost a 6% increase in damage. I mean, it's not a lot. The armor penetration is probably the most strangest thing since they had normally high penetration, but increasing that by 200, I'm not sure if that's going to change anything. Particularly since most things that they're weak against don't have an issue with armor, but it's their damage reduction. So a lot of that. Fortebraccio Garrison, I think they mean Fortebraccio Pikeman, but base piercing damage going from 1492 to 1592. Attack interval reduced by 20% during brace. Oh my goodness. They already attack faster than before. I think they got like a 33% they got a 33% attack speed increase. Now they're decreasing the attack interval by another 20%. So I'm not exactly sure how much damage the Fortebraccios are going to be outputting, but my goodness, last time I measured, well, not last time I measured, but like how I calculate like their damage output, I'm not even sure how fast their attack speed is, but like their total damage output is actually not that bad. It's roughly around about where it should be in comparison to the pike length of Halberdier Sergeants, but because I'm not sure about how fast attack speed is, this could be really insane. Again, like attack interval reducing. If it's reading, if I'm reading it as literally, it could be like increasing the attack speed by like another 25%. So these guys could be attacking as fast as like, man, like it takes around about 3 seconds for roughly for like traditional pikes to thing. If I imagine that they were roughly 3 seconds before, 2 seconds, 2 seconds afterwards, and now they're probably going to go to like 1.5. It's it seems really crazy to me that it seems really crazy to me like how I mean it'll be like 1.6, but like it seems really crazy to me. Basic piercing defense only being increased by 40 and 20 respectively. Basically nothing. Again, the armor increases per 10. Like that's an increase of only less than 8% damage. So for piercing in particular, like the values we're playing with, like this is almost negligible. You could increase their piercing defense by like 200, and only then would you see like substantial effects or differences. These small differences will only work against low armor penetration units, but the last time I checked, nearly every single ranged unit in particular have like almost 2,000 armor penetration. Only things like Imperial Pike Guard might die before they can even reach the Fortibraccios. So uh, it's weird. It's very weird. Fortibraccios also don't have an issue with the damage they deal. It's an issue with hitbox attack, and block break. Block break in particular, they're really weak against shield, even more so when you compare them to phalanx, who are actually really good against shields. Balance overview. We have cavalry units, fire lancers, fire lance attack interval reduced by 20%, base piercing damage, 1682, 1832. This has weird implications as well. It doesn't explain if it's the melee attack of the fire lance or the range attack of the fire lance. I believe what they're trying to focus on is the range attack of the fire lance, which is stupid. And since they did buff it by 150, it's kind of in a weird spot. The fire lance cavalry fire rate is so it needs to be so low it competes with the tier 4s at the very least, but the damage it deals is actually so low already that it's not even in the ballpark. Even though as a musket unit it has high penetration, well, high penetration for whatever 2400 is anyway. So in general, it feels like they're doubling down on Fire Lancer's range attacks, which I think is a mistake. Because I think Fire Lancers distinctly is different from the Liao Rangers, but it shouldn't necessarily be. Liao Rangers base blunt damage is going from 1485 to 1685. That's a massive increase, 7.5%, I think. Just an estimate right there. Um, Crazy actually amount of increase there. Probably actually 7%. I probably overestimated how much that increase was, but 7%. Not to mention it could multiplicatively stack on some of the other ratios and stuff. Blaze blunt armor penetration goes from 1856 to 2006. The only units that would actually have to worry about blunt armor penetration are things like Shield Maidens, Badal, and Iron Reapers, who have like 800 Blunt armor penetrate. Actually, I'm not sure about the medals. Maybe they have only 600, but um, yeah. Again, Liao Rangers are really good, but no one uses them because it's just like they don't deal the insane damage of the other units. Like bludgeon is really strong. Hit six targets for three, almost three and a half. I think the last time they got buffed. This will probably push them to about 4K. If we're like not talking about like damage reductions and stuff in armor. Winged Hussars, Hussar charge cooldown reduced by 5 seconds. Honestly, you could reduce it down to 30 seconds, and I don't think it would be an issue. Base piercing damage, 828 to 1028. Whoa! 25% increase in damage. If that actually correlates to their charge, that Hussar charge is going to be so devastating that it's kind of ridiculous. Base slashing damage is going to 947 to 1097. And again, 150 increase in this case is like slightly over. Oh man, 1/6, whatever 1/6 is. So Hussar's getting a massive, massive buff here in terms of base damage. Monastic Knights, base piercing armor penetration, 1674 to 1874. Base piercing damage, 908 to 1008. I like the Monastic Muff's buff. It will give them a good buff to their charge and their basic attack, though I will have to stress that I do think the general buff to Lance Cavalry's being able to just walk through infantry is much more annoying than they realize. Only units that have CC on hit will generally be able to deal with a lot of these cavalry, and I want to just say it's terrible. It's terrible because cavalry phasing through your line, especially infantry lines, not a great experience. Bucklers, especially the OP bucklers, all have some CC effect, so they're not normally weak against cavalry, but I've been seeing a lot of situations where, especially the humans, after a charge, have simply been able to just walk through even paladins. Like not even a charge, just walk through, X through a paladin, and the paladins die. And it's getting worse as the polearm infantry in particular for tier 4 are just not worth to bring at all. You just get beaten up by infantry, and even if you do get a couple of good cavalries, you get flanked by a cavalry and you're half dead anyway. Um, even even if they charge you from the front, I've had a lot of situations where I'm getting slowly broken down really fast, and people are smart enough to actually CC your pike line. It's a really bad situation for the battlefield, and I'm pretty sure everyone can agree on that. I want to say that all of these are. I want to say that the direction is extremely, extremely ill-conceived. This is a very much slap in the face to a lot of what I have been saying because I don't want buffs at the current time. Nerfs to the core design, not to the stats. The stats are virtually meaningless at this point. A lot of the well, attributes anyway. A lot of the problems um, multiplying effects such as like ratios, the bonuses from speed, the hit limit, in particular the hit limit, um, phasing. Again, it's one of my pet peeves, but it's just kind of one of the things where obviously I'm the contrarian here. I don't like phasing. I don't like collision being almost meaningless. I want every unit to be like the whooshing pikemen. I want them to be similar to the Silidars when I'm going around with cover commando. I don't want them to just stack up and have this tight little ball so tight that I can't even see individual units anymore. Anyway, finally, we have the Buckler Infantry Helot Auxiliary Leadership reduced to 50. I don't know why they refuse to allow the Helot Auxiliary to be an actual auxiliary. It's kind of dumb to me that they would reduce their leadership so down to 50, even though it's virtually worthless to bring at the current time. Even if you can get a good placement for that supply point, got the absolutely jacked out speed and damage reduction buff. It's the Helot Auxiliary's combat effectiveness is so low, battle ends so quickly, and your usage is also hyper focused on ranged gameplay. If ranged units has just blatantly so much ammo that they will kill 3 or 4 units before they need a resupply, what's the point? Most of the time, anyway. These range infantry are not trying to shoot in off periods where there is no push, which means that they either again pacing is just like a lot of those things. All right, going back to the announcements, it's clear that
It's hell out there. The countryside is full of
someone
deserters and bandits.
is pushing Conqueror's blade to accelerate or accept the current status.
I sense an unquenchable
I'm.
thirst for aspiration within you.
This is
Tell me,
kind of
why do you fight?
feels like a nail in the coffin for me because I don't like anything that's happening. And I know I said
I
during the
sense an
update that
unquenchable
it's
thirst for
great that they
aspiration within you. Tell me,
haven't
why do you fight?
done anything wrong so far, but it's it's very clear to me that they want to buff more than nerf now, and that is a very naive thing to do, and it is very silly to, and I'm going to say this really direct here, whatever veterans have told them that they should buff
I sense an
more
unquenchable thirst for aspiration
needs
within
to
you.
shut
Tell
up
me, why do you fight?
because buffing units in the current state of the game will only cause more issues further down the line.
It's hell out there. The countryside is full of
And
deserters and
a
bandits.
lot of design issues are not being addressed because the developers are either too afraid or unaccepting because probably more to say that I'm probably in the minority here that wants a fundamental change to a lot of things. So I understand that I'm naturally a contrarian. I don't like a lot of the I don't like the current state of the game and how it's kind of pushed to this to this state. But it's I want I want this game to be a good game in the end. So if people would rather just buffs all around and
I sense an
have
unquenchable
counter
thirst for
systems,
aspiration
it's
within you.
really out
Tell
of my
me,
hands
why
here.
do you fight?
I'm only one person. My opinion doesn't really matter if it doesn't connect or resonate with more people. But the Daggerack Lancers, the one thing I want to stress as well
It's hell out
is that
there.
there
The
is a
countryside is
bug
full of deserters and
with the
bandits.
cavalry damage reduction while charging that causes their counterattack slashing animation animation, by the way, it doesn't necessarily need to be during rally to me to give them damage reductions way higher than intended. This Like a Pine basically cements this change as a passive innate feature, and it's really stupid that they and this is the kind of thing that I really hated, really hated with Shield Maidens. Shield Maidens was one of the worst choices I think the developers made in light of a exploit. In my eyes, it's an exploit. The shield, if you guys don't know, the Shield Maiden exploit I'm referring to is the ability to use the Cover Commander, um, which is a spear ability, during Sword. Now, previously, before a particular update, the Shield Maidens would actually bug out when you switched to swords and you were still in Cover Commander. They would literally not work properly as Cover Commander when you switched to Sword. The only thing that was working was that they would seek the enemy that was near you. Otherwise, they would stay where they were. And this is a really big headache because it's just a really stupid bug. But the other thing, so not the other thing, but the thing is about this exploit is that it actually gave the the update, sorry, actually gave the swords a version of Cover Commander, which was different from the Spear Cover Commander. And I want to explain very precisely what's different between them. The Spear Cover Commander has bonus damage reduction on it. It has higher levels of blocking, and it causes knockback on hit. Do mind, the spear attacks all have knockback anyway, so it's knockback on top of knockback here. But the problem here is that Sword doesn't have knockback. Sword also doesn't have bonus block, or blocks while attacking, those kinds of things. I'm not sure. Alan kind of knows this a bit more. I'm not entirely sure, but something to do with rather. But um, during spear mode, they will block attacks while they attack, which is not normal when they switch to sword mode. Um, and that's about it. That's about it. It now since been changed so that they only have those extra bonuses for about 5 seconds, but it's it was a silly and honestly a stupid mistake to ingrain that as a natural feature, since it was never intended for these abilities to combo or essentially um, interact in this way. And like this, it's something similar, but it's just really silly to me that the Daggerrank Lancers has a bug where the cavalry damage reduction is triggering or is incorrectly applied during the slashing attack of the counterattack, causing them to be almost damage like 90%. They have 90% damage reduction basically during their counterattack animation. And this is not exclusive to Rally to me. It is not exclusive, and they can trigger the slashing animation because the original slashing animation is one of their normal basic attacks. Finally, I want to also stress that the increase against infantry in particular is just silly to me because doubling down on their anti-infantry capabilities just means that they're just going to be really strong for that brief second charge straight into the pike lines. Or you can do this yourself. you can rally to me, let them catch up to you, and they'll switch to the counterattack stats, and then run towards the pipeline, and you will win. This is something I used to do mine.
It's hell out there.
I had the
The country's filled with
the
blood,
cavalry
civilians
damage
and
reduction
weapons,
on, so
first-class militia
obviously I was
recruited.
exploiting.
Tell me, why do
But
you fight?
but Daggerack Lancers will not lose to pike units if what's happening is going to happen. And I'm really upset that they would do this. It's really tough for me to read all of this and just I'm really upset about the changes here and I want to kind of gauge what people, my viewers, want to kind of see changed because I don't want to believe I'm the only one, but at this point, I believe I'm the only one because it just seems very silly to me that, especially veterans, like quote unquote veterans that express these opinions, like, I don't believe that people who have longtime players of Conqueror's Blade do not see the
I
problems
sense an
in the game
insatiable thirst
and
for
only want to
exploration within you.
accelerate them, but at the same time, I
Why
know
do you
people are
fight?
stupid. Even I'm stupid. I make stupid mistakes. I think about stupid things, and honestly, I could be wrong. My opinion could be objectively wrong here. Maybe this will be a fun game. Maybe it could be a fun game. But I
I sense
just
an unquenchable
don't
thirst for
see these
exploration within you.
changes
Tell me,
are going
why
to
do you
be
fight?
fun, are going to make people go, wow, this is improving the gameplay. Everything here just tells me that they're going to make the situation worse. We're going to have the next OP, the Flavor of the Month unit. We're going to see Kriegsrack Fusiliers out on the field, Tertials out on the field, maybe the return of the Rattan Marksman out of the field. Daggerack Lancers, I think, are not going to be that strong, but it's definitely going to be in a state where it is above and beyond even some of the viable units that I would consider, and it will be above Paladins, which I think is borderline top,
I sense an
almost
unquenchable thirst
meta.
for aspiration
Almost meta.
within
When
you.
I mean meta,
Tell
I
me,
mean
why
OP.
do you fight?
Paladins are in a situation where it's really strong for what it is. It's stronger than everyone else, but it's slightly weaker in its natural state versus how the meta works. But that's everything I want to say about the coming PTR. I want to I will definitely want to know what you guys think about the letter that was presented to the community at the start, and I want to know if you guys think that these changes on the PTR are are the way to go. And please do, if you're on Discord, please do go to the announcement, join the PTR, and present a well written feedback because one of the things that is very important to me is people, more people talking. I know that the developer's getting overwhelmed with feedback, but
I sense
I
an unquenchable thirst for
desperately want
aspiration within you.
people
Tell me,
who
why
can
is it hell out
express
there? The
opinions on
countryside
why
full of
things
deserters and
are bad
abandons.
and people and I just imagine that if there could be more precise explanations from different aspects and viewpoints, we could get a better discussion and understanding of what needs to change for Conqueror's Blade. I have a very particular view on how I think Conqueror's Blade should look, but I just not talking with a lot of people that doesn't just want to blow everything up or keep the status quo. I definitely don't want to keep the status quo. I don't like cavalry, how it is, how OP it is. Damage is out of the window. It's very difficult to stop. I can't use anything besides dedicated anti-cav units or OP units, OP meta units to deal with cavalry. Or I just deal with it my hero. I literally 90% of the time I'm killing cavalry with my hero. But the problem is my hero is so weak now is that I can't even kill like a quarter of a cavalry unit with just my hero. I kill like 3 models. There's 18 of them, maybe 16. If you're the companions, there's 27 of you, so I'm even in a worse situation. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Other than that, my name's Sasuke. Have a nice day. Bye for now.